for women in ministry. And I'm really talking to you if you're a woman who's been suffering in silence for a long time and really hasn't admitted it. And I know what these problems are. And one of the hardest things is to acknowledge that there is a problem. To acknowledge that, you really are suffering. That this isn't going the way you wanted it to go. And so if you don't acknowledge that there's a problem, that's where you're going to stay. And this is for you, if you don't, maybe you know there's something going on, but you really won't admit it. And if you've gotten used to thinking small, it's really, really tough to even know that, for one, because the box becomes, just the way you are. I just thought of a story that I've used and shared at times, and it's about a man who was traveling and came to a farm, and he saw a bunch of chickens on the ground feeding, and in the middle of the chickens there's this eagle eating like a chicken. And the guy who was driving by saw the farmer out there and said, "What's this eagle doing with the chickens?" The farmer says, "Oh, he thinks he's a chicken. And so he eats like the chickens." The traveling guy said, "Oh, come on, this is an eagle. He's got to know that he's an eagle." The farmer says, "Hey, I've tried." And so the guy asks if he can try, and he picks up the eagle and holds it up and says, "You are an eagle, fly." And the eagle looks in his hand and hops down and starts eating with the chickens. And the guy says, "I'm coming back tomorrow morning at dawn." So he comes back in the morning and he goes up into the top in the loft of the barn into a window that's open, and he holds up this eagle. It's higher up. He's at least got to spread his wings or something to get down to the ground. And so he holds up the eagle and says, "You are an eagle. Spread your wings and fly." The eagle looks around, sees the chickens down there, floats down and hops around and starts eating and scratching on the ground like a chicken. And then the guy who's driving by says, this just cannot go on. And so the next morning he comes back at dawn, and he takes the eagle in his vehicle, and he goes out to a high hill, onto the edge of the hill. And he says, again holds up the eagle, and he says, "You are an eagle. Spread your wings and fly." And the eagle looks at the rising sun and kind of looks around and hesitates and gives the cree of an eagle, and starts flapping his wings, and he takes off and starts to soar and becomes the eagle. If we're so used to being in that small box, we're like that eagle sitting in the midst of the chickens. We are each an eagle that God has created to fly. So if you've gotten used to thinking small, we need to get out of the chicken coop, so to speak, and spread our wings and fly. And this is for you if you're on autopilot. And you kind of know it. You've been there for a long time. And if you're on autopilot and kind of know it, there's a numbness that can set in. I understand that. I know that because that's where I was. That's where I was before that new senior pastor, or just about that time, came and told me that I had a choice to either resign or be fired. Yeah, I was numb, and I was on autopilot doing the ministry that I was supposed to do being the pastor I was supposed to be, according to that person and that organization's definition. But I wasn't spreading my wings to fly. And I don't want you to sit and wait another year, decade, whatever it takes before you find out how to fly. That is what we are all called to do, is to spread our wings, the wings that God gave us, to fly like the eagles we were created to be. And so what are your dreams for ministry? You have to learn how to dream bigger. And as I've said before here, that sometimes that's really, really tough to do. What's helped me in doing that is reading things and getting to know people and organizations outside of ministry, for one, and to think about some of the things that are coming. And one of the people who has helped me do that is a fellow named Peter Diamandis. And the other day I was in an airport and just went into one of the shops and found this magazine. I think it's a magazine. And Peter Diamandis is the guy on the cover. And so I picked this up to read it. It's about being leaders. But Peter Diamandis, for those of you who do not know who he is the founder of the X Prize. The X Prize is, if you've heard of SpaceX, they're now the company that sends rockets up to the International Space Station, but NASA uses them. This is a private company. And there's the other companies that you've heard of, like Virgin Galactic and Blue Ocean. Virgin Galactic with Richard Branson, and Blue Origin with Jeff Bezos. These companies exist because of the X Prize. The X Prize was a prize, a monetary prize that Peter Diamandis got together to get companies, individual people and companies, to figure out how to democratize, in a sense, space travel. And the first person or group that got a ship up into space, and did it twice, I believe was the requirement, to a certain height and returned safely with people on board, they won the prize. And that was the SpaceX company. And so he designed, or has become the SpaceX company, he designed that prize to encourage spaceflight, and he got the idea for that from Charles Lindbergh, which I had long forgotten, is that Charles Lindbergh's flight across the Atlantic as the first person to do a nonstop transatlantic flight was a competition for a prize, $25,000. And Charles Lindbergh won that. And so Peter Diamandis took that idea and put it to space travel. Now, Peter Diamandis is a very intelligent gentleman. He has a medical doctorate, I believe from Harvard, and he also has a doctorate in physics. I think that's from MIT. But anyway, he's no slouch in the intelligence department. But he works with people, with CEOs and investors and leaders, to help them dream and think bigger so that their companies, their organizations can think bigger. And in this article, he has a statement that I'd like to share with you about how we need to have a mindset, the kind of way to think. It's called an exponential mindset, to be able to think bigger. It's thinking, breaking the box, getting out of that small thinking box. And it's about creating the right mindset. And I'm quoting from this article. Um, he said, or the article says, for the past few years, Peter Diamandis has focused on nurturing specific mindsets that help create transformational leadership. And this is now a quote from Peter Diamandis. What made Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Steve Jobs, or even Mahatma Gandhi successful? Asked Diamandis. It wasn't money or personality that made them successful, but rather their mindset. If ever they lost their wealth or other worldly assets, their mindset would still exist to push them back on course. Unfortunately, very few individuals stop to ask themselves what mindsets they want or how to improve themselves. Mindsets are typically formed through exposure to family, friends, belief systems, and work colleagues. But identifying the key mindsets critical for tackling our current period of massive exponential growth is vital, according to Diamandis. We are in a period and time of exponential growth. Now, a lot of that is stuff that we can't really see. Exponential growth starts out as a very flat line. And if you think about talking about space travel, when my grandparents were born, they were using horse and buggy. Horses were still the main mode of transportation. And then along came the horseless carriage, meaning the car. And cars got faster and faster, and this line of growth began to have a little bit of an upswing to it, a little bit of an angle up. And then somewhere in the 60s, started doing some stuff with space travel. And that mind and everything since then is beginning to take off. And at some point with an exponential curve, it goes from a slight increase to there's a bend and it just starts to shoot straight up. And according to Peter Diamandis and other people like him, we are at that curve where everything is starting to go straight up. So all of the changes that we have seen in the last couple of years because of COVID, with technology coming into ministry, even into very small congregations, that's critical. But that's just a small part of what we're going to have to deal with. There's artificial intelligence. There are changes coming in how we deal with climate and helping prevent the disasters that some people say will occur if we don't deal with climate change. There are things about how transportation, instead of, I don't know if you remember, but when I was growing up, one of the cartoons was the Jetsons, and they were using flying cars. That's going to become a reality, folks. Instead of driving down the street, we're going to be flying through the air, and our commute's going to take, instead of 30 minutes, it might take 7. And all of the changes with that, and then biomedical ethics, and all the things that are coming with stem cells. It's exciting, and it's scary. But it's coming. And we as people of faith, as women of faith in leadership, we have an opportunity to step up to the plate and dream big and work in congregations to do this. But we have to have the mindset to be able to do that. And we have to be able to think in ways to help us do that. And fantasy, dream big, dream the outlandish dreams. Things that everybody thinks are foolish until they happen. Who would have thought that space travel would ever happen? Who would have thought that it's now becoming something that us normal people might someday do very regularly? And it will happen. It will happen. But there are also going to be the challenging days, and the days when things don't go right and things don't go well, and people will say, oh, it's a failure. And then they'll come back to that old saying, well, we tried this before, so we can't do it again. It didn't work before. If Thomas Edison had taken that advice when inventing the incandescent light bulb, we would not have light bulbs today. I think it took him like 10,000 attempts to get the light bulb, the incandescent light bulb, to work. It was well over 1,000 attempts. And if he had said after 5, well, that idea is out the window, you know, when would we have gotten incandescent light bulbs? So we can't stop with just one try. Failing, quote unquote, is an opportunity. That's what I'm learning. That's what I'm beginning to get into my mindset. Failing is a way of saying, okay, this part didn't work, so let's try replacing that part. See what's coming next. See what else we can do. How can we improve it? What can we try differently? Who else do we need on the team to make it work? All of those things are important. And so we need to overcome those challenging days when we doubt ourselves and when things and other people doubt us. And those things will happen. Those days will be there. So I want to introduce you to one of the tools that I use for my mindset. It's something called Positive Prime, and it uses the latest brain science, neuropsychology, and positive psychology. And part of this is based on the idea of mirroring the people around us and mirroring what we see. Our brains are wired, literally wired, so that if we're in a group of people who are very negative or angry, it's easy for us to become angry or negative. But if we work with our brains to and work with what we see and what we put into our lives and into our surroundings to see more positive things, that is what we will bring to the world and what others will see in us. And that will reflect around the world as well. And so Positive Prime is based on science, and it also uses a particular kind of technology where there are images and words and some music, and together each group of that is called a session. And by watching a session for as little as 3 minutes a day, just 3 minutes, it can help us form new neural pathways for a more positive mindset. And so we're going to play a video here for one of those sessions. And usually what they suggest is you start out at a slower speed of maybe 2 or 3 times the speed, and then for about 2 minutes, and then speed it up. It can go as high as 10 times the speed, but I usually do it at about 8 or 9. And I can't read the words that flash by, but sometimes I can get like 1 or 2 words out of some of the phrases that are there. But the images are really important. And so I encourage you to sit back and watch this and see what happens to you after watching this for the rest of the day. I'm going to share more about that as we go through it, but it starts out with these words to pay attention, be focused, and we are in this together. We are grateful. All of these things that are in there that help us with that mindset, and share your joy. Imagine yourself being there. So if we keep it at about 2 for now, to see if we can slow it down so people can get an idea of what's going on. There we go. And how fast you go depends upon how long look at the dog. This is one for happiness. And every smile in there, it's not a smile for the camera. Those are genuine smiles. And that's a very different kind of smile. It has a different effect on us neurologically to see that and the messages that are there. And if you know, put your own name in there when you, if you do it or something like that. Those are all parts of that. Love some of these images, and forgiveness is peace. Ah, the child. And the diversity of people and images and situations in there is very intentional, because these are for everyone, and they are about for people all around the world. Richard Branson. And the other thing is that every time you play one of these video sessions, the images reshuffle. So you will never be seeing them in the same order again. And so they may be similar order, but you'll never be seeing the same order again. And I've seen this session a number of times, and the one with the squirrel with the camera, I don't remember ever seeing before. But so it reshuffles the deck so you don't get bored with this. And this is, you know, the beauty of this, to think about all of these wonderful smiles, these people, these situations, and the words that you hear that are seen there, and you know, the colors, and the possibilities that they share, generosity, peace. Some of the ones with the animals are the funniest to me, but some of the ones with the children are just absolutely precious. And adults, all ages, all parts of the world. These are all very intentional, so that it's there for everyone. And to be able to see this and to do this, who can we inspire? Feeling lighter. Yes. Facing reality. So this is delightful. And the music that's part of this is a part of the feeling. Many times if I'm listening to, watching one like this, I'm up and dancing, because it just keeps me alive and moving, and the kid blowing the golf ball into the hole. Yeah. So we take these. This is one of the tools that's available these days for helping us with our mindset. And like I said, it's based on science. It's based on positive psychology, which is, it's not just a, you know, be happy thing. It's a reality. It's a whole field of study these days that's really very, very important. And there are many different videos or sessions that are available. They're on happiness, they're on relationships, they're on dealing with stress and relaxing. And I don't know about you, but as a faith leader and as a pastor, that can get to be extremely stressful at times. So to relax and calm down. There's ones, I said, relationships, on health and wellness, finances, success, all kinds of different things. And I don't even remember how many sessions are there, different kinds of ones, but there's so many different ones there. And it's a joy to be able to choose from. Yes, this is a paid service to be a part of that. If you're interested in that, let me know. And it's not expensive. It's like $20 a month. If you buy by the month, and no long-term contract needed, you can also get a yearly subscription to it. But this is not about selling that. It's telling you that this is a tool. There's another new tool that's out that I'm learning about as well. It's called Focus Calm, and it reads the brain waves that we have, so that it helps us then get a signal as to how calm we are. and helps train us with a visual as an app on your phone as to how calm you are when doing certain things. With meditating, it shows the value of meditation. It shows that actually has value to it. Or yoga or any of the other things that you're practicing, and how calm you get, how long you can sustain that, and how calm you are in other kinds of situations with doing some other learning activities in the midst of it. So that's another tool. There are others out there. These are just two of the ones that I've been using and becoming familiar with. But the question is, what tools do you currently use to shape and maintain your mindset to live your dreams? If we don't have some of these tools, and without working at this, our minds do get set. And sometimes they're set like concrete, quite frankly. And that's not useful. We need to have flexibility. We need to be able to see, to think, to vision into the future, to see possibilities, to see where God is leading us, to see how the technology and the advances in our world, where faith speaks to that, and in good ways, and how we can help other people understand that and work together with that. Technology is coming, changes are coming, and people of faith, we have a responsibility to be able to help members navigate that change and embrace the changes and even help grow that, all in the context of God's love. But how does that work in specific times and specific situations? So we're going to take another break here, and I want you to think about the tools that you currently use to help your mindset. Do you have a practice of meditation? Do you take breaks? Do you ever go on a sabbatical? Have you ever done that? Do you take your day off? Do you take any time off during the week? Or do you follow the pressure from a congregation that says you're always supposed to be working? And that in ministry, there's always more people to visit. There's always more to do. Obviously, evidently. And some of those are emergencies and need to be dealt with. But there is a time and a place to say enough. And one of the situations I was in after leaving the congregation, where I was told I was no longer wanted, I worked for about 7 months as the interim chaplain at a multi-level retirement community. And the person who had been the chaplain retired. And one of the things that the CEO told me very specifically was, you have a 40-hour work week. And one of the reasons he said that was because the previous chaplain, who just retired, had basically lived inside of that facility. He basically lived there. I mean, he wasn't a resident there. He had a house and a family, but he was there so much, even in the middle of the night, that he wasn't as effective anymore as he could be, because he was there too much. And he didn't take care of himself. He didn't have a mindset that allowed for that. And we're going to get into some more of that on the other side of this break. But what tools do you currently use, or what tools do you need that you don't have to help your mindset? So we're going to take about a 15-minute break here. Write some of that out. Think about that. What can help you have a more flexible, broader, dynamic mindset where you can dream, where you can be open to God's future for you and for the church? So we'll be right back.